Ladies and gentlemen, too often we measure our worth by how others treat us. We give, we sacrifice, we love, sometimes to the point of forgetting ourselves. And yet, when someone takes us for granted, we crave their recognition, their regret, their pain of loss. But tell me, why should you seek validation in another's suffering? If a man does not value your presence, let your absence be felt. Not by bitterness, not by revenge, but by becoming something so radiant that his own shadows haunt him. Do not shrink into resentment, expand into greatness. Let your glow remind him of the darkness he chose. You see, pain is not something you must inflict upon another. The deepest pain is self-inflicted, when one realizes they have lost something truly extraordinary. The universe does not demand that you make him suffer, it simply asks that you rise beyond suffering. When you do, the weight of his own choices will be heavier than anything you could ever place upon his shoulders. So if you truly wish to make him feel the pain of losing you, do not wait for his sorrow. Do not wait for his apology. Do not wait for his regret. Instead, become so full of life that he drowns in his own emptiness. Do not be fire seeking to burn him. Be the sun so bright that he cannot look at you without feeling the sting of his own blindness. Too often, we tether our sense of worth to how others perceive us. We become reflections of their love, their validation, their attention, and when that attention fades, we question ourselves. We wonder if we were not enough, if we could have done more, if we should have stayed a little longer, fought a little harder. But tell me, why do you allow someone else's inability to see your value dictate how valuable you believe yourself to be? Why do you place your self-worth in the hands of another when it was always meant to be yours? You see, when you base your sense of self on how another treats you, you hand them the keys to your happiness, to your peace, to your very existence. And that is far too much power to give away. If a man does not see your worth, it is not because you lack it, it is because he is blind to it. His failure to appreciate you does not diminish you, it diminishes him. His inability to hold on to you does not make you less, it makes him less capable of recognizing something extraordinary when it stands before him. But this is where we often falter. When we are hurt, we want them to hurt. When we are abandoned, we want them to feel the void they have left behind. We wish for them to realize, to regret, to suffer, because in their suffering we believe we will find closure. We believe that if they ache for us, it will confirm that we were worth aching for. But my dear, your worth is not proven by another's regret. It is not proven by how much they miss you or how deeply they suffer in your absence. If you have to wait for another's pain to feel valuable, you are still holding your power outside of yourself. Do not seek to make him suffer. Do not wait for the day he wakes up with a hollow heart and longs for what he lost. Do not spend your nights hoping he realizes what he walked away from. Instead, realize that you are not meant to be a lesson for someone who refused to learn while you were there. You are not meant to be the memory that haunts him, the shadow that lingers in his regret. You are meant to be the force that rises above all of it. The kind of woman who does not need another to feel pain in order to know that she was always worthy. If he took you for granted, let that be his burden to carry, not yours. If he was careless with your heart, let him be the one who faces the consequences of his own choices. You, on the other hand, have a far greater task ahead of you. You must become the woman who no longer waits for recognition from those who fail to recognize her. You must become the woman who does not shrink into heartbreak but expands beyond it. You must become so whole within yourself that even the thought of seeking validation from another seems absurd. Because the truth is, the greatest pain he will ever feel is not the one you try to impose upon him. It is the one that life will impose upon him when he finally realizes that you were the rarest kind of woman, the kind he was never prepared to love, the kind he was never meant to keep. And by then you will be far too busy thriving, growing, evolving into a version of yourself that does not even remember his name in the way he wishes you would. You will not be his heartbreak. You will be his greatest what if. So do not let his blindness make you question your light. Do not let his neglect make you question your worth. Your value is not found in the way he treated you, nor in the pain he feels after losing you. Your value is and always has been in the way you rise beyond all of it, untouchable, radiant, and completely free. Revenge is often misunderstood. Many believe it is about inflicting pain, making someone regret, or causing them to suffer in the way they made you suffer. But true revenge is not about destruction. It is about elevation. It is not about breaking someone else. It is about building yourself into something so unshakable that their absence no longer holds any weight in your life. That it is about reaching a level where they are no longer a loss but a lesson, a mere stepping stone on your path to something far greater. When you have been hurt, betrayed, or taken for granted, the most instinctive reaction is to wish for justice in the form of their regret. You want them to wake up one day and feel the same emptiness that you once felt. You want them to realize what they lost and wish, even for a moment, that they could turn back time. But tell me, what does that serve you? Even if he does regret it, even if he feels the pain of losing you, does it truly fill the void within you? Or does it only keep you tethered to the past, waiting for a satisfaction that will never truly satisfy? Transformation, on the other hand, is powerful because it does not depend on him at all. It is about you stepping into the fullest version of yourself, not to make him miss you, but because you were always meant to be more than what that relationship allowed you to be. You see, when you grow beyond who you were, when you become stronger, wiser, and more radiant, his absence stops feeling like a wound and starts feeling like a necessary clearing for something better. You no longer think about what you lost. You only focus on what you are gaining. The beauty of transformation is that it is undeniable. When you truly evolve, it is not just an inner shift. It manifests in every aspect of your life. The way you carry yourself changes, the way you speak, the way you move through the world. There is an energy that surrounds you, an untouchable glow that makes people take notice. And that is where the real impact lies. Because when he sees you again, if he ever does, he will not be met with a woman who is waiting for his regret. He will be met with a woman who has transcended it, a woman who has become so complete within herself that he is no longer even a thought in her mind. And that, my dear, is the kind of pain that no amount of words can match. People do not feel the weight of their loss when you are still hurting over them. They feel it when they see you rise in a way they never imagined, when they realize that their presence or their absence had no power over you. That is the moment when the regret will sink in, and by then it will be far too late. Not because you wanted revenge, not because you planned for this outcome, but because you chose yourself, because you outgrew the space where they once existed. And nothing is more devastating than realizing that someone who once longed for you no longer even remembers the taste of your name. So do not waste time wishing for his pain. Do not linger in the past hoping he sees what he lost. Instead, shift all of that energy into your own transformation. Become so fulfilled, so radiant, so deeply in love with your own life that even the thought of him becomes that is the ultimate victory, not because he suffers, but because you no longer do. There is a deep misconception that in order for someone to feel the pain of losing you, you must actively make them suffer, that you must send reminders of what they lost, that you must show them what they walked away from, that you must in some way ensure that they feel the weight of their mistake. But the truth is, pain, the deepest kind, is never something that is forced upon someone. It is something that comes from within. It is not something you need to deliver. It is something that arrives on its own in its own time, when the realization strikes. You see, people often do not understand the value of something when it is within reach. They assume it will always be there. They assume they can neglect it, mistreat it, take it for granted, and that it will still remain. They do not see the worth of gold when it is placed in their hands, but when they lose it, when they see it shining elsewhere in another place with another person, that is when the weight of their loss sinks in. Regret is a slow poison. It does not always come immediately. Sometimes it takes weeks, months, or even years before it fully sets in. A man may walk away thinking he is free, thinking he has made the right choice. He may even convince himself that he feels relief. But then life moves on. He meets other people. He experiences relationships that lack the depth, the warmth, the understanding that you once provided, and suddenly what he once had with you no longer seems so ordinary. It begins to stand out in his memory, and for the first time, he truly sees. And here is the most powerful part. You will not have to lift a single finger for this to happen. You do not need to beg, to prove, to remind. His realization will come not because you wanted it, but because it was inevitable. Because he will look back and see the way you loved him, the way you stood by him, the way you gave so much of yourself, and he will finally understand what he lost. And by then, it will be far too late. This is why it is so important that you do not waste your energy trying to force someone to see your value. Because the more you try to make them feel the loss, the more it seems like you are still attached. True impact does not come from chasing. It comes from complete detachment. It comes from the moment they realize that you are no longer waiting, no longer hoping, no longer affected by their absence. That is when regret becomes unbearable. Because the worst kind of pain is not the one someone else imposes upon us. It is the pain we inflict upon ourselves when we realize we have let something precious slip through our fingers, when we understand too late that we had everything we needed and we were foolish enough to walk away. That is the kind of pain no one can escape, and that, my dear, is the pain he will have to live with, not because his own choices led him there. When someone leaves your life, especially someone you deeply cared for, it is easy to feel as though you have lost a part of yourself. You may feel smaller, diminished, as if the love you poured into them somehow drained you of your own essence. The pain of being taken for granted, overlooked, or abandoned can make you question your worth, leading you to believe that maybe, just maybe, you were not enough. But let me tell you this, you were never the problem. The issue was never your love, your kindness, or your devotion. The issue was that you gave it to someone who was not capable of holding it. Now, in the aftermath of that loss, you stand at a crossroads. One path leads to resentment, to bitterness, to the desire to make him regret. But the other, the far more powerful path, leads to expansion, to growth so profound that his presence or absence no longer carries weight in your life. This is the choice you must make. Will you shrink in the face of pain, or will you expand beyond it? Shrinking looks like allowing heartbreak to define you. It looks like closing yourself off, losing confidence, questioning your own worth. It looks like replaying old memories, trying to figure out what went wrong, and waiting for the day he realizes what he lost. But this does not serve you. Shrinking only keeps you trapped in the past, tied to someone who has already moved on, giving them power over your emotions long after they have exited your life. Expansion, however, is the antidote. Expansion means taking that pain and using it as fuel to elevate yourself in ways you never imagined. It means stepping into your highest self, not for him, not for revenge, but for you. It means pouring all of the love you once gave so freely to another back into yourself, nurturing your dreams, your passions, your personal growth. It means becoming the kind of woman who no longer needs validation from anyone because she has found it within herself. When you expand instead of shrink, you do not just heal, you evolve. You become stronger, wiser, more radiant than before. Your energy shifts and people notice. Not just him, but everyone around you. You walk differently, you speak with more confidence, you laugh without hesitation. And when he sees you again, if he ever does, he will not see the woman he once knew. He will see someone transformed, someone untouchable, someone who has outgrown the space he left behind. And in that moment, he will understand that the loss was never yours, it was his. But by then you will not even care, because you will have realized that your worth was never meant to be proven to him in the first place. It was always meant to be embraced by you. And when you choose to expand beyond heartbreak, beyond regret, beyond the need for closure, you do something far more powerful than making him miss you. You make yourself unstoppable. When we feel hurt, betrayed, or abandoned, there is often a burning desire within us to retaliate, to make the other person feel the pain they caused us, to set fire to everything they left behind and watch as they crumble under the weight of their own regret. This is the instinct of fire, reactive, destructive, and momentarily satisfying. But fire, no matter how intense, always burns out. It consumes itself in its own rage, leaving behind nothing but ashes. Instead of being fire, be the sun. The sun does not chase, it does not burn in anger, and it does not waste energy on those who fail to appreciate its warmth. The sun simply exists, powerful, untouchable, and undeniable. It rises each day, bringing light and life to everything around it. And those who turn away from it do so at their own loss. This is what it means to truly make him feel the pain of losing you. Not by seeking revenge, not by trying to manipulate his emotions, and certainly not by reducing yourself to a game of who can hurt whom the most. Instead, you rise, you glow, you become so radiant in your self-love, your confidence and your joy, that your very existence becomes a reminder of what he let go. People do not regret losing those who beg for their attention. They regret losing those who become something they can no longer reach. When he sees you thriving, not pretending, not forcing it, but truly thriving, he will feel the sting of his own blindness. He will realize that while he was busy looking elsewhere, assuming you would always be within reach, you became something far greater than he ever imagined. And just like the sun, you will not move for him, you will not lower yourself to make him more comfortable. If he can no longer look at you without feeling the weight of his own mistakes, that is not your burden to carry. The best way to make him feel the pain of losing you is not to fight, to chase, or to prove anything. It is simply to become so powerful, so fulfilled, so unshakably happy that he cannot ignore the light that radiates from you, and by the time he realizes what he lost, you will be far beyond his reach, shining, soaring, and completely free. Ladies and gentlemen, the pain of losing you is not something you need to orchestrate. It is not something you need to force or seek revenge for. The deepest regret does not come from what we are told. We all hear words and forget them. Regret comes from what we feel, what we experience, and what we come to understand only when it is too late. If a man could not see your worth while you are giving him the best of you, that is not your failure, it is his. If he walked away, if he took you for granted, if he failed to cherish what he had, that burden does not belong to you. Your responsibility is not to make him suffer, to make him regret, or to make him see what he lost. Your only responsibility is to rise. Rise beyond the pain, expand beyond the heartbreak, become so complete within yourself that whether he regrets losing you or not is no longer of any importance. Transform into a version of yourself that is so radiant, so fulfilled, so untouchable, that the thought of you becomes a mirror reflecting his own mistakes back at him, not because you wanted revenge, but because you chose yourself. And that, my dear, is the most powerful way to make him feel the pain of losing you, by living a life so extraordinary that he becomes nothing more than a distant memory, a lesson, a footnote in the story of your unstoppable evolution. Because in the grand scheme of your life, he is not the main character, you are. He was merely a chapter, maybe even just a page in the story of your becoming. And if he could not appreciate the depth of your love, the brilliance of your spirit, or the kindness of your heart, then his absence is not a loss, it is a blessing in disguise. There is no greater justice than watching someone who once underestimated you realize, too late, that you were the rarest kind of woman. But by the time he reaches that realization, you will have already outgrown the space where his love once existed. You will have already embraced new adventures, new opportunities, and perhaps even a love that recognizes your worth the moment it sees you, without needing to lose you first. So do not lower yourself to anger. Do not waste time wishing for his regret. Instead, pour every ounce of your energy into becoming a woman so powerful, so radiant, so undeniably whole that whether or not he feels the pain of losing you becomes irrelevant, because you will be too busy winning, glowing, and thriving to ever look back. Let him feel his own pain, let him face his own regrets. But as for you, keep rising, keep evolving, keep shining like the sun, because the greatest revenge is never destruction. And as you move forward, let this truth settle deep into your soul. You were never meant to beg for love. You were never meant to shrink yourself to be accepted. You were never meant to prove your worth to someone who was blind to it. Love, real love, does not require you to diminish your light. It celebrates it. And the person who is meant for you will recognize your value from the very start, without needing the lesson of losing you to finally understand. So, do not wait for his regret. Do not hold your breath hoping that one day he will wake up and see what he lost. Whether he realizes it or not is no longer your concern. What matters is that you realize it, that you see yourself clearly, that you recognize your own brilliance, that you understand your worth does not hinge on his ability to cherish you. And when the day comes that he does finally understand, when the weight of his mistake crashes down on him, when he looks at the life you have built and realizes that he no longer has a place in it, that is when he will feel the pain of losing you in its fullest form, not because you wished it upon him, but because life has a way of making people face the consequences of their own choices. But by then, you will be far beyond his reach. You will not be waiting, you will not be looking back, you will be too busy thriving, expanding, evolving into the highest version of yourself, a version so untouchable, so magnetic, so overflowing with joy that his regret will be nothing more than an echo in the distance. That, my dear, is how you make him feel the pain of losing you, not through anger, not through revenge, but through your unshakable, undeniable, unstoppable rise.